This topic is obviously one that's very timely, and I had some fun putting this together because I've got sort of a little anecdote to relate on a particular project that I worked on through DRP. But every day we're adding more and more content in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic from the Esri side, and that includes a lot of different solutions, tools, workflows, blog posts, ideas, stuff on GeoNet, things the community have come up with. It's really quite amazing. It's overwhelming in some ways, but all in a good way. So I want to make sure to highlight some of that work in addition to discussing the coronavirus response solution and the other solutions that we have. So when this whole thing broke through, there were some questions that local governments had and state and local government entities had. So do citizens know where the testing facilities are? Is there a place people can go for information on school closures? Are there statuses of community resources available for us to get? Do we have information being distributed to citizens from an authoritative source? People were coming back and saying, I've got 15 different websites that are all reporting different numbers for coronavirus outbreak in my town or in my county or in my region of the country. So it become patently obvious that some of our authoritative sources, say county government or local municipal government, really needed to get these dashboards and other things out to the public and do them quickly because people were asking a lot of questions about it. So this was something that, it was a challenge. It's a challenge that was faced by these folks. So there were many challenges and very different challenges for some people. Some had limited infrastructure and resources. Like, I can't possibly post this. We don't have an ArcGIS online presence that's well built out, or we don't have the time to develop and configure an application to do this work. Or we're concerned with the data accuracy and the timeliness of getting the data out on a regular basis. All of these things combined with the pressure to produce content rapidly. And so I saw this quote from the CDC in an internal PowerPoint, and I really liked it. It said, each community is unique and appropriate mitigation strategies will vary based on the level of community transmission, characteristics of the community and their populations, and the local capacity to implement strategies. That is a big, long sentence, which all just boils down to different parts of the country would have different needs. Different agencies are going to have different capabilities to respond to said needs. So it becomes important to be flexible and yet to take advantage of what you've got. So when I first started working on this, I, as well as all of the rest of the SEs and the Boston office and the Philly office and all of the other Esri regional offices were assigned to the DRP team, so to the disaster response team, to help with some of this work. So we started exploring a lot of different response workflows. And so my region is the state of New York and also New England, both at the county level and all the way down to the municipal level. So before the solutions were even made available, we had a lot of different options that we investigated. We talked about potentially using ArcGIS maps for office, which is not a bad solution for a very simple implementation. We found some interesting limitations that caused us to sort of veer off that path. I'm still not convinced it's not a bad path. It's just you have to upfront take some other things into consideration. Survey 123, great tool for collecting information from people out in the field or putting stuff into a form that's easily collectible. Before using the solution came out, we looked at just independently, how would Survey 123 play into this whole idea? Looked at, hey, how about just a simple web map? What if I just had a simple web map with all the municipalities in my county and just made it available for editing? And maybe I even build like a simple little web app builder editing tool And every morning we go in and we put the new numbers in. Not a problem. Could certainly do that. And then concepts that I discussed with other SEs, like Craig Cleveland out in New York. He lives in Madison County, and talked about ArcGIS Online hosting feature layers and tables from spreadsheets. So lots of different ways to do this. But the overwhelming need was a dashboard. So some sort of a coronavirus operations dashboard, either for internal facing usage or external facing usage. Some to the public, some not. Of course, you cannot map individual case locations and make that public. That is violation of HIPAA as well as a lot of other regulations. But you could use that internally and then aggregate it into geography and then display it in some sort of a dashboard. So we talked about a lot of different ones and we implemented some successful ideas, but now we have a whole bunch of solutions. So as recent as 2 weeks ago, there were only 3 of these. There was the coronavirus response and hospital and PPE inventory and the business continuity solution. So those all addressing different parts of the problem. The next one to come out was the coronavirus force readiness, which was for military. And now we've rolled out a small business recovery solution, wellness checks, testing sites, and recovery dashboard. So this is a moving target. You will see more and more of this content coming out and coming out fast and furious. So the best thing to do is to go to the solutions page and look into each one of these and see what it does. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways to deploy this. Tom mentioned this in his presentation. So one is to use the ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool in ArcGIS Pro, and you can go to this link and download it, and it comes out as a tool that runs right inside ArcGIS Pro. And I can sort of slide this window over here and show you. You load the solution and it appears here on your Share tab. And you click on this ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool and then you go search for the solution. So for the coronavirus stuff, you could just type in coronavirus. You could look under local government. You could look under emergency management and you would find these in here. Okay, so like there's coronavirus response. You can see that it tells me that I have already deployed this solution with ArcGIS Pro. And there's one for business continuity that I've deployed, but there's an update available. I said, okay, that's cool. So that's one way to do it. And another way to do it is to go to the solutions page. So if you follow this link here, what it does is this is the sort of the new methodology for deploying the solutions. Okay, so you see these in here and it lists all the different solutions for coronavirus. So for example, if I wanted to implement this one, I would just click on it and say, get it now. And what it would do is it would lay all the tables and views and maps and survey forms and whatnot right into my ArcGIS Online organization. And it'll put it in a folder for you so you can go find it pretty easily and then you can work with it. One thing I will say is that a solution that's deployed with the ArcGIS Pro deployment tool does not show up here if you click on My Solutions. So I click on My Solutions and it says, oh, you don't have any of those. And well, that's not exactly true. I did, but I laid them down with my ArcGIS Pro tool, because if I go into my content, I'm going to see that I do indeed have, say, a folder for coronavirus response. Okay, so you can see that I do have this content in here, but it was laid down with the Pro tool. So there's some subtle differences there. Don't really have time to go into all the details, but needless to say that if you install using the Solutions tool, then it will make your organization aware that that's the way you did it. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. Here's another example of that. In this particular org, there's a list of all the solutions, and then this tells me that indeed I did install those 3. Okay, and if I look at the content over here in this particular org, I'm going to see how that's a little different, because I'm going to find that same folder, but there's this solution item. Okay, so that's something fairly new. The solution item, and it sort of is like a bookmark to say, hey, now I'm going to let the solutions tool know that this is installed. But you get a couple other things too with this, and I really want to point this out, is that it tells you all about the contents. So for example, you have this community impact dashboard, and it outlines all of the maps and the layers and the views that come into play. Okay, so it outlines all of this data, and this is going to be important because these solutions have a lot of moving parts. Okay, well, it's pretty easy to lay it down. Then you're going to need to go in after the fact and take a look at it. Okay, to sort of help you out. The help is good. Okay, it's very good. It's going to describe to you like how to implement this and all the different pieces and parts that are involved. And then in addition to that, you will get access to an Excel spreadsheet which outlines to you all the different pieces that are involved in this format here. So this is kind of cool. I like this. You can say, I want to monitor the community impact. And I click on that, and then it filters out all the content that is related to that. Then I see the community impact dashboard. So I click on that, and it says, well, these are the user personas that will do this and the user types. So it's for a viewer, no editing at all. Uses ArcGIS Online, uses a dashboard. And then it comes over here and says, these are the layers, these are the layer views that you use. It uses the community impact dashboard map, and these are all the sub layers underneath it, and it outlines the entire schema. Okay, so that's all pretty good. So I like where that's going. A lot of the other solutions for ArcGIS Online are going to be available through this deployment methodology as we go forward, but right now they're just focusing on the COVID stuff. So the coronavirus response solution is pretty powerful. When you implement this, it gives you, as you can see, it gives you a dashboard and some mobile tools, some desktop tools, 2 or 3 dashboards, and a great way to collect all the information. So you can track things like impact on public gathering places, inventory places where people can get testing, and sharing information with the public. So the most important one that we found, or I found when I was working with folks, was they really wanted to be able to report on where the cases were and then show that in a dashboard. That was by far the most important thing. So all this other stuff about communicating school closings, community closing, facilities locators, those were important too. But getting this dashboard up was really seemed to be the focus of everyone. Okay, that everybody really wanted to be able to do that. Okay, so in addition to that, we also give you access to a coronavirus response hub. So with your ArcGIS Online organization, you get a ArcGIS Hub Basic subscription. Tom's going to talk a lot more about this in his hub session, but you have access to a template which will help you lay down a response hub where people can come and gather information, to get information that you can post information that your state is collecting. You can post information that say that your county is collecting, and put all of that stuff up here into this response hub. Okay, it's all integrated together. So all of these different pieces and parts from the solution can be integrated into the hub. So you can have people go to the hub, and the pieces that are public facing, you could give them access to that through that. So that way, if you change something or there was a new URL, when you change it on the hub, they're just going to see it. Okay. And again, just to sort of stress all these pieces that all work together, all this stuff can all be put into the hub to drive the dashboards, and then the only thing that people are going to really want to look at is the public facing sides. But then internally, you're going to have internal facing data as well. All right, that's really important that the public, notice these layers here with public on them. Those are layer views that are read only. So it's important that you be able to edit the data internally, but when you share it externally in a dashboard, that it not be findable or editable in the public. So all this stuff will all come together into these maps and apps. So the maps and apps and the coronavirus response template and solutions, those can all be worked out through the hub. It's all powered by your ArcGIS Online subscription and Hub Basic. There are implementation and enablement activities that you could contract a partner or Esri for. If you apply for DRP, so the Disaster Relief Program, then you can get additional users and additional credits added into your ArcGIS Online organization, or if you don't have one, you can get one. and then you can get help from tech support, and then we can give you some, help, like a half a day to a day of configuration help to get you started. Okay, there's some great blog posts. I'll share this PowerPoint with everyone so you can see the blog posts on how to launch a coronavirus response website. This is really good, talking about the featured sites, all the different customers that have put up dashboards and solutions. There's way too many to mention here. I wish I had like an hour just so I could go through all of the local solutions that folks have done. They're awesome. The discussion of the response solution, and also the other solutions like the business continuity solution. So being able to go in and process where your employees are. So that's part of that business continuity solution. Some other resources, we have a hub. So there's the Coronavirus Resources Hub, which is completely and totally organized around this particular topic. Then some blog posts on there. So how your GIS department can respond to COVID-19. Some excellent blogs that have been put up here onto the hub, both from Esri folks and from users, sort of outlining what they've done. Here's some great examples. Again, I will include these in the PowerPoint. We really don't have time to walk through all of them. But I want to make sure to include these in here so you can search for these. And a lot of these are linked off the Esri COVID hub as well. Okay, so some really good work being done out there at all the way from the federal level right down to the local level. Okay, so what I wanted to do is sort of touch on a couple of things. I'm going to talk about one of my customers that I've been working with for quite a bit of time now through this, and that is the County of Saratoga, New York. And Saratoga County has, it's a county just north of Albany. So here's where Saratoga Springs is, really nice. And they applied for DRP. And so this conversation started before the solutions had been made available. So we didn't really have anything out there. And we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about simply having an ArcGIS online map that they would just edit. We talked about pulling information into a dashboard. There was some discussion about how to do this. We had highly motivated staff from 2 different departments. So Meg O'Leary from the County the Saratoga County Public Health Services, a public health expert who hadn't used GIS a whole lot. And then we had Troy Hiltz from the planning department. So Troy had a lot of great GIS knowledge, but hadn't really done much in public health. So getting them together and getting them, pulling all of their expertise and subject matter expertise in was critical. The other thing that came through loud and clear was the dashboard. The dashboard. That's what everybody wanted. They wanted a public dashboard to communicate status. So the question was, how are we going to do this? And like I said, this is before the solution had come out that we got started on putting all this together. And plus there were a couple other interesting twists that made us decide to go with a solution that was oriented using spreadsheets and daily testing numbers, as opposed to with the solution. So let's take a look and see what we did. So when you use the solution, it's actually pretty straightforward. You've got these community impact dashboards. Sorry, that's the wrong browser. This is what happens when you do a presentation. You've got like 18 browser windows open all at the same time. Okay, so what they typically would do here is, with the solution, you'd use a Survey 123 form, and say you come in here and say, okay, say for the town of Charlton, this is the date reported, and today we have cumulative totals of like 34 positive, 77 negative, 5 pending. Today, what cumulative totals have recovered? I'm just making these numbers up. They don't mean anything. And hospitalized 5, daily changed. Today we administered 19 tests. We had 4 new cases, no deaths, and 2 hospitalizations. If we wanted to, we could break these things down by the source of exposure, gender and age, the hospitalization stats. We go ahead and submit that. and it gets rolled up into this dashboard. Okay, so that's all great, but the question became, what do we do if we need to go back and make some changes? So we might go back and say, well, we've discovered that like 4 of those positives were false positives, so we want to go back and change the data. And we've also found that 5 or 6 of the pending tests that we hadn't categorized actually turned out to be positive, so we want to go back to a certain date and change those to positives. And so that is all doable, but when you do that through the data that you pull together in Survey 123, you sort of have to go back and find the feature layer and then go back and make some changes, which is all doable, not really that big a deal. But what we decided to do was to go with the approach of loading up a set of spreadsheets. So we collected the information into this municipal spreadsheet. So these are all the municipalities in the county. So if you're from New York, you know that a typical municipality is made up of cities, towns, and villages. Sure, there's also like hamlets and stuff, but they don't really have any geography per se. So if you get data, say, from the New York State GIS Data Clearinghouse, you can easily pull together the geography for the towns, the cities, and the villages. So what they do is they track these, again, I fake these numbers up, they don't really mean anything. So for the tested positive, active positive, recovered positive, and total deaths, so these are summary numbers. There's another set of summary numbers just for the county in another spreadsheet. And then there's also a spreadsheet that they collect for daily testing and then daily confirmed cases. So this is a table in Excel, and every time they add a new row, it just goes ahead and keeps that total going. So we've got our cumulative case count. Okay, so that's great. So now what we do is we take that and we loaded all that up into ArcGIS Online. So let's go look and see where that goes. So if we look at the content, we've got a set of tables. So these are hosted tables and they come from a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. So when you upload a table into ArcGIS Online, a spreadsheet, it turns it into a table. So you have the Excel object and the table object. And then I took some of those tables and I joined those to the county geography. So I had a geography layer and then I used an analysis tool to go in and join those together. So now I've got this view. So I've got a county view and a municipal view. So I got the county polygon and they got all the muni polygons, and that's joined to that data in Excel. So every day when they get a new set of data, all they have to do is come in, say, to this municipal case boundary and say, oh, okay, great, I've got new data here, so I want to go ahead and update that by appending the data to the layer. Okay, so all they would do is update that data and then append it, and based on the FIPS code or the name of the town, some way of uniquely identifying it, it would then go ahead and update that information. And when we update the information, we get this. So this is the actual live Saratoga County Department of Public Health Services COVID dashboard. So Meg goes in every morning and she takes those 4 spreadsheets and she uploads them into ArcGIS Online. And the associations between the spreadsheets and the geography are already there through the hosted layer view. And then they take the other 2 tables, which are just stats, they aren't really connected to any geography, and we make all these charts. So for example, we're using an indicator widget over here to show the total tested and then residents to date in quarantine. Underneath some of these could be other numbers. So we've got like current quarantine numbers, some explanation text in here as to like what those quarantine numbers actually mean. Each one of the polygons is going to have summary statistics for the county and summary statistics for each town, and noting that darker colors indicate a higher rate per capita. So showing all the summary statistics all for the county. Each one of these charts, of course, could be expanded. So I could look at my age range of hospitalized cases. So we've got that all split up. And age range of deaths. We also have charts by gender, so we could see that. We can also see by essential status. So are these healthcare workers essential or other? So to be able to see all of that. And then we have our famous or infamous, I guess, the whole idea of the flattening of the curve. So the flattening of the curve can be shown here, where each day we say these are the cumulative confirmed cases. So if the case count is starting to plane out, that's a good thing. So we want to see that. So the user can expand that however they'd like. And they can also see the daily tests. So each day, like how many tests have been, how many positive tests have I got coming back here? So this is all driven from the data. And so the question becomes, could I have done that all with the Survey 123 workflow? And the answer is sure. You know, there's no, you have to do it this way or you have to do it the other way. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that. And different users have taken different approaches. Like I said, one of the reasons that we like this approach for Saratoga was the ease of going back and saying, you know, we had 66 tested positive for Half Moon total, but since then we've looked back and a couple of those were misreported, and we actually had 68. So I want to be able to go back and fix that. And like I said, you could go back into the feature layer that Survey 123 creates and go in and edit that data. But it's just as easy here to just go in and push all this together and say, hey, you know, I've got all of this information. I'm just going to push the layer, the table back up into ArcGIS Online, and then it's done. So that is the approach that they took. All right. So we've got a bunch of different approaches here. I mean, none of them are necessarily any, I would never say better or worse than any others. They're just different. So it's like so many different things with ArcGIS in general. There's like about 9 different ways to do the same thing. Okay, so I showed you the dashboard. That's good. I'll show you a link. There's a link to this that's included. This is live on the public health website. And again, massive kudos to Meg O'Leary and Troy Hiltz for doing all the hard work. And I just helped them out a little bit. But I consider that a success story. Plugging the hub one more time, the Boston hub. I know we've mentioned this 100 times, but we're going to start including more and more resources in here and links to things that folks have done in conjunction with COVID. So we encourage you to go and follow up on that particular that link to follow our office.